Football Friday brought to you by Elite Lawns. No mud, no mowing, no mess.
Hello and welcome to Football Friday here on Bay TV with me, Jennifer Jewell, and our two football legends, Graeme and David Fairclough. We're here to talk about the week in football and look forward to this weekend's games for both Everton and Liverpool. But first, let's start with last night's game in Kiev, where Everton lost 5-2 on the night, Graeme. 6-4 on aggregate. What went wrong last night?
Everything, Jen, to be perfectly honest. I thought it was a game we could go over and get something from and progress into the next stage, but it wasn't to be. Conceding 5 goals away from home, you can't afford to do that. I think we from an attacking point of view, we got 2, so you'd probably think that was enough. But defensively, we were dreadful at the goals we gave away. The first goal, you would have to say, Yarmolenko, he's all left foot. Push him on his right, they didn't. Went inside, hit a screamer past Tim Howard. The 5th goal was a worldie, and you think, well, fair play to him, but the goals in between were really poor goals. And I think that's a disappointing thing for not just the supporters, but the manager as well, saying that, you can't afford to concede 5 goals. I thought we got back into the game at 1-1. I still thought we were in. Even when we were 3-1 down, I thought we can score again here. But when you're conceding goals like we are, you're never going to win football games.
Well, scoring 4 goals in over the 2 legs and you go out, surely that's totally the defence to blame?
Well, it's not just a defensive blame, Jen. It's the way we set up. And, once I looked at Kiev, and Kiev aren't a great side. And Kiev won't win the competition. I'll be really, really surprised if they get beyond the next round. Good going forward. Yeah, all right, not exceptional, but poor at the back. But, every time they went forward, it looked as if they could score a goal. And it wasn't. I couldn't just blame the back four. The whole team, have to look at themselves. I think, when the team was announced, the people in and around the press box were maybe a little bit surprised that Gibson didn't play. That Osman didn't play, especially coming off the back of the Newcastle game. Yes, of course, we got QPR at the weekend, which is important. But I think there was a few eyebrows raised at the team selection. Atsu coming in from the cold. So looking at it, it was an attacking team. But sometimes away from home, Dave, more than most, that you've got to sit down and say, okay, let's get rid of 20 minutes and make sure we're solid, we're tight and compact. But I think we just went chasing and we got picked off. And, as I said, some of the goals were outstanding, but there was a lot of poor goals there last night.
Going into the second tie with a 2-1 lead, David, the last thing you want to do is give away so many goals. It could have been so easy for Everton if they would have just been tight at the back.
I didn't think the lead was brilliant. 2-1, it is a lead at the end of the day, but you go, as Graeme sort of mentions, I think with the idea that you're not going to give anything away and you don't sort of play in any cavalier style. And for Everton, really, the onus would have been to try and quieten the crowd, because they go to these places and they can be a little bit sort of up for it initially. Yeah. But I think if you take the steam out of their enthusiasm, things do have a way of panning out well for you. But I thought Everton were a bit blasé about how they approached it, and certainly to lose the type of goals that they did. Again, I agree. Two great goals. One could have been stopped, but the defending throughout was very poor. I don't know what went on actually. I don't know. Nobody seemed to take control. Nobody seemed to boss Everton's defensive sort of approach.
Well, Alcaraz obviously taken a lot of the blame for that. Is it solely down to him, that defensive problem last night?
It's not solely down to him, but I think you'll be first to admit that maybe he could have done better. But again, it's hard picking on individuals. It's a collective, and I think they've all got to look at themselves and the way the goals were conceded. I think it might have been the second goal where Phil Jagielka got injured and he was out of position and he couldn't get back, and they scored from that. So they were a little bit unfortunate with that one, but. I think that there'll be fingers pointed at certain individuals, but again, as we say all along, it's a team collective, and the team have got to do an awful lot better. You're going into that game off the highs, if you like, winning Newcastle, thinking, oh yeah, things have turned around. But if you watched it last night, it certainly hasn't turned around, because that was as bad as it's been for a long time.
And the team obviously includes the manager, Roberto Martinez. Did he get it really wrong last night?
Well, again, it's easy to sit here and say, yeah, he was wrong. But I thought that the setup of the team, again, with the 3 players in behind Lukaku, I think raised a few eyebrows. I think the win against Newcastle, you know, Coney played alongside there, upside Lukaku, and it looks as if a two. Lukaku said in the press afterwards that he prefers that he's got somebody alongside him to take the workload off him. So maybe, we don't know that maybe Aruna Coney maybe can't play 2 games in a short space of time because of the injuries he's had. But certainly the inclusion of Atsu and even Ross Bartley, you know, yes, he scored against Newcastle, but I think those two, you know, surprised a lot of people. So I think it's a collective. I think the players have got to shoulder the blame. I think the manager has got to shoulder the blame as well, which they always do anyway. But he said afterwards in his press conference that, you know, it could have been any score, and he's right there because we had opportunities. Ross Bartley was so unfortunate with 2 shots that hit the post. They had a great opportunity. They hit the bar, so it could have been anything. Honestly, it could have been any score last night, but it could have been 7 for them.
Yeah.
And that is a worrying thing. Going away from home against a team, yes, backed by a really vociferous crowd, noisy, in your faces, 67,000 people there, incredible atmosphere. But you know, to concede as many goals as we did, and the Evertonians went over there as well. Really, really disappointed that we didn't put on a show, and you know, that's a disappointing thing. Back to the drawing board. You know, massive game at the weekend against QPR, and they need to get back on track quickly.
Absolutely. Why so many changes, you think, David? Because they done so well last weekend against Newcastle with that system that they played with the 2 up front. Why change it so quickly?
Well, I think you have to appreciate, I think, that, you know, situations are different. And certainly playing Newcastle at home and Kiev away, I think calls for a slightly different approach, as we pointed out. I mean, Everton could have played a sort of a 4-1-4-1 type of situation, a more defensive, like Kiev played at Goodison. European football needs to be thought about, and I think it's only after the event that when you tend to think, if only we'd have done it like this, we'd only have done it like that. Everton could have quite easily advanced to the next stage, and I think there's a great chance sort of missed. Yeah,
a chance missed. But on a positive note, a goal from a corner for Everton last week, which we haven't seen for a while.
Well, I think Phil Jagielka even celebrated it. You know, I think it was just, you know, the towel had been thrown in. But then, yeah, it was good to score a goal that counts from a corner, but not in the bigger picture, if you like. But it's a worrying situation again, you know, and it's a worrying situation. Listen, if Kiev were world beaters and you say, right, okay, not a problem, that was great, we were going to be tough there, but they weren't, and that's a disappointing thing. I think going home last night and the fans going home last night, I think that's the thing. They should have been in the next round if, you know, they'd have turned up last night. They didn't turn up. Listen, there was some good parts of it where they played some decent game, but if you're asking me the question, I think I'd have went there with a more, and you'd have probably got slaughtered for this, a more defensive mindset to say, okay, we have what we have at the moment, a lead. If we go a goal behind, I still fancy we can score. Yeah. But it looked as if they were just going toe-to-toe. Yeah. You know, and
there was no need.
No, there's no need to do it. And even at 3-1, and I'm thinking, we get the next goal, we're through here. You know, and it was always up. Then we lost the 4th goal, and then the guy hits a great one for the 5th, and you know, there's no way back there. But for long spells of the game, we were still in it. We had a free kick, and I think it was at 4-2, where Bainsy hit the wall. That goes in, you never know. But as I say, disappointing.
Real naivety, really, as you say, at 3-1 down. I mean, you're 1 goal away from going in. You really sort of make them nervous then, and anything really could have happened. So it was really disappointing to see it unfold the way that it did. And you know, go back to the point. I think that's why Liverpool fans were so disappointed early on in the season. If you go out against good teams, hold your hands up. Liverpool went out of a group, you know, that involved Basel, and then we eventually lost to Besiktas. I mean, both teams have had opportunity to do better in Europe, and that's down to maybe a bit of leadership and a bit of sort of experience.
Well, we've spoke this week about English teams on a whole being awful in Europe this season. Why are we not competing on that level at the moment?
I honestly don't know. I think is the Premier League overhyped? I think possibly. You know, I think, you know, I was always was a great believer in the Spanish league, being probably the best league in the world, but obviously with the money and everything else. But you know, obviously Manchester City for me are the biggest disappointments. You know, who year in year out, you know, fail to produce in the Champions League. And it's all right the fans turn around and say, well, we played against Barcelona and we played against Bayern Munich, but only because of their results in the group stages means that they face these teams later on. So I think there's a lot of soul searching to be done.
Is it a big problem, English teams in Europe at the moment, David? As you said, Liverpool also didn't perform well.
It's a little bit of a problem because the coefficients for places for the future is affected from say 3 or 5 years ago when English teams made up the bulk of the semi-finalists in the competition. Now to go into a point where we've got nobody in the quarterfinals does begin to affect our presence in the competition. So it makes it difficult for everybody. But why sort of City should struggle the way that they have done? I think you have to look at City and think that they're on the wrong path. Drastic changes need to be made. They've got all the money in the world. There's no reason why they shouldn't be sort of matching Barcelona toe to toe. But I mean, Barcelona are probably the informed team in the world at the moment. So they've met Barcelona at a bad time. But Arsenal, I look to Arsenal going out against Monaco. I mean, even on the night, I mean, and people will say that Arsenal played well. I thought Arsenal should have murdered Monaco. It should have easily been 4 or 5 even for me on Tuesday night. So I mean, maybe there is overhype, maybe there's an overconfidence about our teams and our approach. But we've got to improve on that front.
Will it change? Will it a winter break maybe is what's been suggested? That's why the other teams are.
Yeah, I think everybody's saying that. But you look at, and David talked about the coefficients. I think the Italian clubs and the German clubs are close to overtaking us, and so the 4 Champions League spots, won't be there anymore. So it'll be even more difficult for English clubs. But it's a really interesting one. You sometimes you have peaks and troughs, don't you? Sometimes it's up for you down, and I just think at this moment in time, we're not as good as we think we are. And other countries have kind of crept up on us and beginning to overtake us.
Absolutely. Okay, so it's all over now for Everton in the Europa League. But join us after the break when we're going to talk about Liverpool versus Manchester United this weekend.
Free lawnmower removal with every grass laid because you'll never have to mow again. Elite Lawns Artificial Grass, landscape partners with Tiger Turf.
Welcome back to Football Friday. We're going to turn our attention now to Liverpool and their game against Man United this weekend. But before we talk about that, David, I do want to talk about Liverpool's win on Monday night at Swansea. Another fantastic result. Liverpool can't do anything wrong right now, can they?
No, great result. Obviously, the performance could have been a little bit better, certainly in the first half. Brendan changed things around at half-time, and that did alter the way Liverpool came out in that second 45. But there are stages of the season, and we've said it before, when really performances don't matter. It's about how you get results. And I think most Liverpool fans have been smiling this week in a way and saying, well, maybe Manchester United have made a sort of their success on winning those games when they probably didn't deserve to win. Yeah. I think you have to maybe hold your hands up and think Swansea probably deserved something out of that game on Monday night. But it's nice to win when you don't play your best form, and obviously it's a good habit to have.
It makes a top team, doesn't it, Graeme?
Certainly does. The goal was quite fortunate, Jordan Henderson, but you've got to get in those positions. But I agree with David. I thought first half, Swansea looked really, really good, but you've got to give credit to Brendan Rodgers, who changed it at half-time, looked at the game, changed it, and allowed Liverpool back in the game. And they come away from a really difficult place to go to, Swansea, with a victory. So they're flying at the moment, looking forward to the weekend, but not many teams go to Swansea and get a positive result.
It must be nice for the fans now to realise that Rodgers has got a few different ideas. He can change things up, and Liverpool can play in a few different ways now, can't they? Yeah,
I think it endorses Brendan Rodgers' status as a manager. I think it's important that in this day and age that you have to sort of change your pattern as games unfold. It's becoming very much an expected thing. So certainly Brendan Rodgers is not sort of slow in that regard. He is able to change things. And unfortunately for Liverpool have a personnel available to them now where they can actually change a game as well, and that's crucial. If you have options, and going into an important stage of the season like we are, to go to somewhere like Swansea and get 3 points, it's a big win, and it gives you that extra belief that maybe things are going your way.
And no coincidence is it that Gerrard came on and soon after Liverpool are 1-up?
Yeah, I'd like to think that Stephen made a little bit of a difference. I'm one of Stevie's biggest fans, and certainly it's disappointing when I think even in this spell that we're in, that he isn't sort of in the first team, that he's not a first pick. So I think that having him available was a major asset, and to bring him on at the stage of the game when we needed to sort of make something happen, I think definitely was important.
I think the thing now is, because they're winning games, he can get away with not playing Stephen. If they weren't winning games, it'd be like he's got to be the first man on the team sheet. So he's getting a little run at the moment with Brendan Rodgers, and then I'm not saying he's getting away with it, that's the wrong word to say, but things are working out well for him where he doesn't have to play Stephen every game. But I would be amazed if Steven Gerrard doesn't play at the weekend.
I mean, you look back to the Basel game, for example, and then there was a moment in that game where everybody was looking to Steven Gerrard, and we haven't moved that far that quickly enough to still say we can't live without Steven Gerrard. He's got an important part to play, and come at the moment. Come at the man, he's going to be vital, I think, in the run. And I'd like to think that he starts on Sunday, personally.
He really is a one-of-a-kind player, isn't he? I don't think Liverpool have got, or maybe other teams in the Premier League, haven't really got a player that can make such a difference individually. I
think over the years you talked about Steven Gerrard at Liverpool and Frank Lampard at Chelsea, who would always come up with winning goals or drag the team through. So you look around and there's not many, is there? You probably look at City and go David Silva, maybe, who could do it, maybe a different type, but no, your team has to have one of those players that you can rely on, every single game. He will give you something that little bit extra, and Steven Gerrard does that, and I'm sure he'll be chomping at the bit of thinking, I've got to play in this one. This is my last Manchester United-Liverpool game.
That's a key point, actually, isn't it? His last Man United derby as such, not really a derby, but competitive game. Will he start, do you think, David?
I'd like to think so. Difficult to see who Brendan would sort of choose him before, but I mean, he's the best player still at the club, so he should be one of the first names on the team sheet, if not the first. So I'm hoping he's starting. It'll be interesting to see what formation Brendan comes up with.
Well, Manchester United will be looking at it, and they'll be hoping he doesn't start. So that tells you everything you need to know.
Exactly.
Absolutely, it does. Just before we talk more about the Man United game, I just want to mention Mignolet, because another clean sheet for Liverpool, which is phenomenal, his record lately, and obviously a lucky goal, and he's pretty much won them the match with those couple of saves that kept Liverpool in the game, hasn't he?
Yeah, a couple of tremendous saves, and I think we've said it in recent weeks. I mean, it's all credit to him now. He's changed things around, and he's changed people's perception of him, because he was coming for an awful lot of stick a while ago, and people were calling for his head and what have you. And now, I mean, the saves he makes on a regular basis are really outstanding. And when you're on a roll like Liverpool are on at the moment, with the keeping clean sheets away from home, belief and confidence are absolutely vital. And he seems to have that in bucket loads at the moment. Even when the ball goes back to him at his feet, he looks and feels much more comfortable. There isn't the same sort of nervousness that we had sort of when he was sort of involved in the game. All credit to Simon Mignolet. He's been brilliant.
He has, and going into this weekend's game is a key moment for him to be feeling that confidence, because it's going to be a very tough game. He's going to have Rooney, and I think they've complained this week, haven't they, that they've only got Rooney and Falcao fit, as if anyone's meant to feel sorry for them. I don't think Sam Mignolet will have an easy game.
I think the two goalkeepers, probably the best two goalkeepers in the Premier League at this moment in time. You've got De Gea in goal for Manchester United, but it'll be an interesting one. But it's certainly not a Manchester United of old. We've talked about this before. They're not the same team as they were a couple of years ago. They've had a few problems with selections, with players, with Van Gaal. I think they've had a problem there as well. Not playing the way that Manchester United fans expect them to play, but they're on a little run as well, and they'll feel confident. And I think Rooney will come back. He won't get a great reception, but he'll want to do well, and he's in form at the moment. So it will be a tough game, but I would say I'd have to shade Liverpool for this one.
Absolutely. Okay, Rooney is probably a bit fortunate that those strikers are injured, because he loves to play up front, doesn't he? And I'm sure he'll relish playing against Liverpool on Sunday, as he always does.
Well, I wonder whether he relishes it, Jen, rather than... I think he probably laughs inside about the banter that he takes, but it can be a bit difficult for Wayne Rooney at Anfield. He does come in for an awful lot of stick, but he's one that we all know that, as Liverpool fans, we've got to be fearful of him, because he can score goals from an instant, and he scores great goals. So he doesn't tend to do it sort of regularly, for United against Liverpool. That's probably, hopefully I'm not sort of putting my foot in my mouth there, but he is one that I think we all respect anyway, and we know his threat and his danger. But it's a massive game. I mean, you look at Manchester United's running from here on in. I mean, they play all the top teams now. They've got a very, very difficult run-in. And I would say that this game is perhaps fractionally more important to United than Liverpool, but that's not just to try and deflect pressure off Liverpool. Liverpool need to win it, and if Liverpool do win it, they puts them in a fantastic position.
Yeah, United defensively for me, they've got problems. Who they play. They've got Smalling in there, they've got Jones in there. Ashley Young's played at wide areas as well, so they've got problems defensively. And I think Liverpool, with the way they attack, they'll cause Manchester United problems. I'm not sure United. De Gea will have to be his best for United to get anything from me.
You mentioned there United have got a pretty tough run-in, but is this fixture in particular going to be decisive for who gets those Champions League spots?
It won't be decisive in itself, but it gives whoever takes the points a massive boost. And as I say, United's run-in is particularly difficult. Liverpool's isn't easy, but certainly I think it favours Liverpool a little bit. And if Liverpool were to get 3 points, then I would really fancy Liverpool to certainly be in the top four at the end of the season.
Now, I spoke about Rooney, and a striker who's not having too much luck at the moment is Daniel Sturridge. Is this a perfect game for him to really quieten those doubts or those little criticisms he's come in for the last couple of weeks?
Well, I think you have to be patient with Daniel Sturridge. I don't think you can afford to think that he's going to find his best form having been out for so long. I think he was fortunate in a way to have taken the pressure off himself, scoring the goal when he did, his first appearance, coming on as sub. He's got the goal out the way, so there isn't that real pressure on him. So he's had to be allowed, I think, to really find his form, find the tempo of the game. And I think you've looked at him in one or two games and thought he's not quite there yet, but he's getting stronger. And maybe that's going to be to Liverpool's benefit, because obviously if he remains fit from now to the end, you'd like to think that he is going to be much more more effective. So I think we've had to be patient on Daniel Sturridge. I think you have to be very careful of any criticism you give him because of the fact that he's been out for so long, but he still pops up with the odd goal. He gets himself into great situations. There's no reason to think why he can't be sort of scoring goals, but I think we've had to sort of just be a little bit patient.
Yeah, can he find that form that he had last season with Suarez again? Because he was so outstanding last season.
He was great with Suarez, and they complemented each other. I think it's not fun. As David says, he's been out for a long time, so he needs time to work up in a relationship with whether it be Sterling, whoever's up there, even maybe Super Mario. He might even feature at the week. You never know. But no, I agree with David. You need to give him time. And it's difficult coming back from an injury, and the serious injury he had. And he probably started off too well by scoring early on. Everybody thought we've got the real Daniel Sturridge back. But it takes a little bit of time, and he has been struggling for a little bit of form. Doesn't look as sharp, which is only natural. But I'm sure if selected on at the weekend, I'm sure he'll be up for it.
Can you see Liverpool win on Sunday, David?
Yeah, no reason to be fearful. I think, as we've said, Liverpool go into the game with confidence. Big game, the stimulus, the atmosphere will all suit Liverpool, and Liverpool very much capable of getting the 3 points.
Atmosphere is key, isn't it, on Sunday?
Yeah, and it's always a big atmosphere when you play Manchester United. A lot of hatred around, if that's not too strong a word, but it's the one we want to win, like we want to beat Everton. No, Liverpool are well capable of taking 3 points on Sunday.
Let's see. Hopefully Liverpool do get that win on Sunday. OK, join us after the break when we'll look back at finally a win for Everton in the Premier League. See you then.
Free lawnmower removal with every grass laid because you'll never have to mow again. Football Friday brought to you by Elite Lawns. No mud, no mowing, no mess.
Welcome back to Football Friday. Before we move on to Everton, I just want to quickly mention there's a special guest at Anfield for the game against Man United on Sunday, and that is the legend that is Pelé. David, it'll be great for the fans to see him at Anfield, won't it?
It's fantastic to think that that Pelé will be there. I don't know whether or not he'll sort of come on the pitch at all, but I mean, you'd like to think so. I met Pelé a few years ago, actually. I mean, you think maybe you get one chance in your life to meet somebody like him. And I grew up very much in the, living on the Pelé legend and watching him, and he was inspirational in those early days.
Another chance to meet him on Sunday, maybe?
You'd like to, yeah. It would be nice. I'm sure
he'll be at front of the queue.
They'll be clamouring. They'll be clamouring to get near
bring the picture with you next week.
He's only small as well. He's amazing.
Well, there you go. Get a picture next to him. You look really tall, and bring it in next week, and we'll show it on the show. Okay, moving on now to Everton. Graeme, finally a win of the Premier League for Everton last week.
Yeah, finally, coming off the back of the win in Europe against Dynamo Moscow in the first leg.
Dynamo Kiev.
Kiev, sorry, Dynamo Moscow. Yeah, Dynamo Kiev. I've been away in Kiev. But no, it was important to get the result. We said it before, and I said last week, Evertonians would rather Premier League survival. And this hopefully is a step towards that. Comfortable victory against, I would have to say, a very poor Newcastle side who look as if they've got the flip-flops on already. They're safe in the Premier League, and it looked that way. They've got a caretaker manager in there. But credit to Everton, they still had to win the game, and they did do that. And in the end, they won it convincingly, and it was a massive result for the football club. We go into the weekend, a massive game again at QPR, and we need just to pick up our game and take points from these games. But Newcastle, they haven't got a good record at Goodison over the years, and certainly looking at the way they played against Everton, it was really poor. They had Ryan Taylor at left back, and he was going up against Aaron Lennon, who was excellent on the day, won a lot of the Man of the Match awards, but he struggled, and the whole Newcastle back four struggled, and it was a convincing victory. Aaron
Lennon showed he can add something different to this Everton side, can't he?
What he gave was energy. And we talk about, the fans at Everton and the crowd being flat. He gave them a performance where there was energy and work rate. He was involved in the penalty incident, which led to the penalty and the resulting goal. So he did really well. That was his best game. That's the best we've seen him in an Everton shirt. It was just unfortunate he was cup tied for the European game. But I'm sure he will feature at the weekend. And on his game, we've talked about him before, maybe his final pass has let him down at times, but certainly when he's buzzing around and making things happen, he's an asset.
He is. Is that pace something that Everton have missed this season, do you think, David?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe a defined system, maybe sometimes for me. If you know what you've got wide, I mean, Everton have tried a number of people down the right-hand side, but I suppose it's getting used to how Everton play, and if you get him on a bit of a roll, then he would be an asset in these later games. So it's a good sign for Everton that they is finding a little bit of form, and now that they have defined a role for him, I mean it's good for something good for them to build on maybe, and he could prove really interesting.
Yeah, he was in there as well, Jen, and Darren Gibson was back, which we were all clamouring for, and he was excellent on the day as well. So they were good performances, and I'm looking at the game on Sunday against QPR, which will be tough, but I'd imagine a few changes from the team that we saw humbled last night, and I think these two will be big players.
Well, back to the team that started last weekend maybe, because he did change the formation and it seemed to work really, really well.
It's amazing because in our day, if you win a game convincingly 3-0, you can't wait to go on to the next game, and that's why I think a lot of Evertonians going over to Kiev would have thought, same team, let's get through here and then move on to QPR, and if there's a couple of injuries, we're okay, let's deal with it. But again, it's chopping and changing, and it's gone back to the front four, 1 and 3 behind, which we haven't got right, on numerous occasions this year. But certainly Lennon, Gibson, Coney was probably a surprise starter, but he did well as well. He could be pleased with what he done. So QPR, different game. Will he revert to it? I think a lot of the fans would like to see him do that, because it was certainly one of the best performances in the last few months, which has been there's been some dire performances, but that gave them a little bit of hope, and as I said, they got the result.
Well, we haven't scored 3 goals for a long time, especially keeping a clean sheet as well, but a rare goal from James McCarthy as well, which was great to see.
Well, I think Tim Krul helped him an awful lot because it was poor goalkeeping. But listen, I think what happened was Darren Gibson's come in there, and the way he's playing is like we talk about a quarterback, if you like, in American football. It allows McCarthy to get forward, and use his energy to get forward. He broke onto the ball, decent straight on target, but you'd expect the goalkeeper to throw his cap over that one. But it wasn't. But it was good to see James scoring a goal and getting further forward, and he needs to add that to his game. I think he's got a lot of really good attributes, but he needs goal scoring to be one of them. So you know what you're going to get from James McCarthy. All he needs to do is score more goals.
Interestingly enough, Lukaku took the penalty, not Baines this time, but it didn't seem to be too much of a debate going on about that anyway, but he done well.
No, it wasn't. I think Baines is one of those people that said, listen, if you want to take it and you're confident enough to take it and you're a striker, you know, why not? You know, I think Romelu thanked Bainesy afterwards for allowing him to do it. But he's in good goal scoring form and his confidence is up with these performances as well, Lukaku. So when he put the ball down, okay, he scored a one against Kiev, and it wasn't the most convincing of penalties, but I thought this one was, and that just capped a good day for him as well. And scoring last night, you know, his confidence is sky high, and so we need him to be on that kind of run of form and goal scoring form between now and the end of the season.
Well, same back five really that played against Newcastle played last night. So why was there such a difference between a clean sheet last Sunday and then conceding 5 goals last night?
Nervousness. You know, they lost a goal early on, and you know, it's amazing. David was talking about confidence, how good it is, but the nervousness the other side, and it's really hard. And I just thought they were really shaky. I think Seamus Coleman was really shaky against Kiev. I think Alcaraz was all over the place. So when you've got that, you're going to struggle. And but you know, the manager remarked in the press conference last night that, you know, he'd been happy with Alcaraz. Somebody questioned him, why did you play him? But he said he'd been happy with his performances. We kept a clean sheet against Newcastle. But I think John Stones was maybe a little bit unfortunate that he wasn't involved last night. And disappointing one for me is Sylvain Distin. And Sylvain just seems to have disappeared off the scene. And I still think at this time of the season, we need all the experience we can get. And I think Sylvain would be ideal. Yes, he's getting to 37 years of age, but he's still got something to offer.
Howard Kenzel was talking in the paper this morning, saying Martinez isn't even explaining why these players aren't playing. I mean, it's frustrating for the fans because we do need this stand, don't we? And he's not telling us why he's not.
Well, I think it'd be frustrating for the fans, Jennifer. I think it'd be frustrating for Sylvain as well. Sylvain's a fantastic pro, really fit guy for 37, wants to play. I think he played in under-21s the other day, so it's not a fitness a doubt about him. So I think he's fit and willing to go. So there's obviously been a disagreement somewhere along the line that we're not privy to. So, you know, we'll just have to grin and bear. But I would like to see Sylvain. What he is as well, he's a good character. He's good in the dressing room. He's old school. You know, he's old school, and maybe he's maybe stepped out of line with something he said. I don't know. But certainly for me, I think we're better with him in and around the squad.
That's the thing, isn't it? We don't know what's happened there. But anyway, leading up to this weekend's game against QPR, how hard is it to concede 5 goals to go out of Europa League and then 3 days later pick yourself up and get going with a campaign that you're kind of struggling in also?
Well, I'd like to think that you're able to sort of maybe rub that out of the memory and perhaps think more on the positives of last weekend and than the Europa League. I mean, I thought it was perhaps necessary to approach the game with Kiev slightly differently to Newcastle. But now back to league game. Maybe it would be the ideal time to perhaps just to put that team back out there and sort of try and pick up where you left off last Sunday afternoon. So it's going to be a big game. I mean, QPR obviously are desperately fighting. They've been a little bit more difficult to play against at home than they are away. So it's a massive game for both on Sunday. Surely
Charlie Austin's a player to keep quiet.
Yeah, definitely. I watched the game against Crystal Palace and they were awful. They were awful, and they would make substitutions at half time. There's a young boy at right back, make substitutions. The centre backs looked all over the place, but they have got a threat up front, Charlie Austin, and you go to QPR and to Loftus Road, really tight pitch, enclosed. So they make it difficult for you at home. So we have to be brave, we have to stand up to them, and we have to compete. First and foremost, we have to compete with them. We can't be taken by surprise. You know, they're fighting for their lives as we are, and we need to get a result.
They are. They're struggling, and as we've said many times before, it's always hard to play against a team who are struggling.
Well, they were favourites from the beginning of the season to get relegated, you know, and so we shouldn't be surprised at that. You know, they have got some decent players, but they've got an ageing squad. But with somebody like Charlie Austin, you've got to make sure that defensively you're at your game. You know, whether we are or not remains to be seen. But I'd like to think that the jolt they got that going out of Europe in the way they did do, you know, would make them focus and say, listen, we're going here, we're all in this together, we've got to roll our sleeves up, we're digging in, we all defend as a team and attack as a team, whereas for many games this season, that hasn't been that. You know, there's been different parts of the team functioning well and others not, but we need to have everybody at it on Sunday, what will be a difficult game.
How many changes would you like to see from the team that played last night?
Well, I would say Gibson for me is a must, an absolute must to come in there. See, I don't know if he will change his system. We talked about it off air about, you know, Brendan Rodgers having a time where he thought this isn't working here and he changed his system. So whether Roberto goes down and maybe plays 3 central midfield players and the likes of Besic, McCarthy and Gibson, and maybe 3 up front, I'm not too sure, Jen, but Gibson for me, I've been disappointed that he hasn't featured as much this year. He has been injured, don't get me wrong, but I think he gives us something else. He's a very important player for us. Leon Osman came on again last night, and I think he will play because he gives us something, little tight pitch as well, which would be ideal for Aussie. So I'd expect Gibson and Osman definitely to play. Aaron Lennon there as well. So I think there'll be changes.
Absolutely. OK, join us after the break when we're going to talk about Tranmere's 2 games that they've played this week and look forward to their fixture at the weekend also. See you after the break.
Free lawnmower removal with every grass laid because you'll never have to mow again. Elite Lawns Artificial Grass, landscape partners with Tiger Turf.
Hello and welcome back to the final part of today's Football Friday, and we're going to talk about Tranmere now. 2 games for Tranmere this week, 2 totally different results. 1 loss at the weekend and a midweek win, so they're out of the relegation zone.
They are, but it's every week it's the same thing. And one week they have a good result, one week they get the bad, and we talked about it before about that's what happens when you're down there, and they've just got to keep going. You know, some of the games that you said that we're expecting them to lose, and you know, I think it was the Exeter they went down, we thought, oh, it's a long trip and everything else, and they went down there. So, you know, fair play to them. They're hanging on in there, and the other results seem to have gone with them. So they're just above the parapet at the moment, but there's still a bit to go.
Only on goal difference, which is never a good sign, is it?
No, it isn't really. Tuesday night results weren't great for them, actually, because they were all beating each other, all the teams down the bottom. So there was nobody really sort of was able to climb away. So they find themselves, despite winning, still stuck in a similar situation. But they've had a difficult week going to Northampton. We said last week Northampton's a very difficult place to go to, and the power and strength of Northampton was always going to be a difficult one for them. But going to Cambridge, who played really well against Manchester United down at the Abbey Stadium, and they go and get a win. So it's in them, isn't it? But it's obviously not consistent enough.
No, and they've got a really tough one at the weekend.
Top of the table, Burton Albion this weekend, but we spoke about them play top of the table a few weeks back. Shrewsbury, that was it, and they won that game. So is it?
Well, they did, but I think this is a different proposition. I think Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank's got Neil Burton fine. I think they've been good over the years previously with Gary Rowett, and I think Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank just went in and just continued the job. And I think that's going to be a really tough game. I'd be surprised if Tranmere, I hope I'm wrong, but I'd be surprised if Tranmere got anything from that. Home
form's not been great at all, and they are at home again this weekend, so that's pretty much a bad sign for them.
Yeah, it's just getting a consistency, and that's why Everton are a prime example in the Premier League. If you don't get a consistency in your performance, you're going to be down the lower reaches, and that's Tranmere's problem. They talk about personnel and injuries and loaning people and everything else. It's just all boils down to consistency, and they haven't got it.
If the worst was to happen and Tranmere do get relegated, what's going to happen with the club there? It's a sad thing to see, isn't it, David?
Well, it's something that I'm sure people don't really want to consider. It's they've had their financial issues this year, so they need stability and they need to consolidate a position in the league. I mean, success for Tranmere at this point now is just survival. If they get if they're one place above the 2 relegation places, then that's going to be enough. But they need to make sure that they're in the league, and I don't think you can really contemplate what would happen if they were to go out of it.
We look at it now, and I think, just for a prime example, the teams that went down and struggled. You look at Stockport County now, who are right down there. Below the football conference, Wrexham conference, but below that again is Stockport, and they're still attracting crowds of 3,000. Wow. But I think that would be difficult for Tranmere, if they go down. So it's a massive massive end of the season. They need to stay in that division, because if they go down, there is no reason why they're going to come back up again.
They need to fight for every point now, don't they? OK, we're going to move on now to a quote that Arsene Wenger has come out with this week, and he wants to see away goals, the away goals rule, totally gone. He's not happy that both Arsenal...
Did they get knocked out this week?
Yeah,
Maybe.
maybe.
I thought they did, yeah, I thought they did. But again, not for me, we were just discussing it in the break there, and it's not so... To me, the away goals is to give the away team an impetus to try and go forward and get a goal, get an advantage. If you did away with that, what would you get with teams just coming away from home and just setting up and say, we're not going to concede a goal here, we don't care, and it's going to be boring to watch? I think the away goal just gives it an extra edge.
Would you like to see it gone?
No, it definitely has to remain. I think in recent years, we've seen people try to come up with ideas to make football more attractive, and by giving points for scoring more goals and all that. And OK, that's pie in the sky, and it would probably not come about. But you shouldn't be thinking the other way, which Wenger is. I mean, he would bring negativity into those games. So the fact that they've gone out this week, I think, has a touch of sour grapes about it. He did say he's been thinking about it for years, but I mean, didn't seem to mention it a couple of years ago. It just happened to be the day after he went out the competition.
They've probably benefited, I don't know, over the years as well. They probably benefited it from somewhere along the line, and we never heard anything about it then. So I think it's a little bit poor of them to say that after they've gone out. But I don't think that will change. I think it'll be worse if we change that.
I think actually, I mean, listen to Wenger's comments this week. I mean, he failed to really accept that Arsenal had underperformed, and over 2 games they clearly had. I mean, okay, I might be picky in saying that they should have done better on Tuesday night. They won 2-0. They could have won much more comfortably, I think. The first performance was very poor at Highbury, but he doesn't seem to have acknowledged really shortcomings, and that's what that is a failing of Arsene Wenger's, really, to ignore those type of things.
And he had an argument with their coach and said they didn't shake hands after him and everything else. So we know what Arsene Wenger's all about. He'll look for an excuse, but as David is spot on there, they didn't perform the first leg especially. They lost the game in the first leg, and it's nothing to do with away goals or anything else. Their team wasn't up for it.
Is he protecting his team maybe by deflecting from the performance?
You can protect your team, but no, sometimes you've just got to be honest and say, listen, we weren't good enough. An Arsenal team, no disrespect, should be beating a Monaco team. Monaco, okay, they spent a lot of money in the past, but player for player, you would say an Arsenal team are superior, and they should win the game. For whatever reason, it didn't happen in the first leg, and he's only got himself to blame. On
the other hand, is it hard to take, though, knowing you've been knocked out of a competition, you haven't technically lost?
No, that's the rules of the competition, that you go in with knowing that away goals count. That's it. It's always been there. We've always known about it. I mean, the disappointing thing for for Arsenal rather, is what we said about Liverpool and Everton. They went out against a team that they should not have gone out again. That hurts. That's the hardest thing. And when those things hurt, you either take it on the chin and admit your shortcomings, or you then look for excuses. And I think Arsenal are looking for excuses.
Absolutely. I suppose it's a lot better of a decider than a penalty shootout, for example, is.
Yeah, the penalty shootout is exciting, you know, and some people will complain about that and they think it's an awful way to go out of a competition. It's really difficult, especially if you've done really well and played really well and maybe clawed back a 2-0 deficit or whatever. But these are the rules, and penalty shootouts are exciting, really exciting for the supporters. And we're always talking over the years about making it more exciting for the supporters. This is what it is. But the one that Arsene Wenger's going on about, no, leave it as it is.
Well, the point is, if you do your job and you win the game, you don't have to worry about these rules, do you?
Exactly, yeah.
So, OK, we're going to move on now to FIFA, and they want to broadcast a televised debate coming up to the election at the end of May, which Sepp Blatter, surprisingly, has refused to take part in.
Your friend, Sepp?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think unless the Greens and UKIP are involved, I think that's his excuse. Well, he's never really had to go out, put out there what he's all about, and he's never had this competitive race for his position. So he's bound to be reluctant to actually put his head above the parapet, I think. And obviously we all know what Sepp Blatter's all about, and we've all been critical of him through the years. But I think the lesser countries and nations around the world seem to sort of to back him, and they are his power base, and so he's standing firm.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll talk more about that in the coming weeks when it gets a bit more heated up. But we are going to move on now because I've got a question for you guys from a guy called Gareth McCall of West Derby. And if anyone else has got a question, please do email them into footballfriday@baytvliverpool.com. But the question this week is, who were the toughest opponents you played against?
Well, with that, I'd probably think centre halves. That's really difficult. I get asked that all the time. Listen, there were always pairs of centre backs. You know, Hansen and Lawrenson for Liverpool were really difficult because they were really good players. But then if you're talking about hard and tough and aggressive and dirty, should I say, I would have to go for two that played for Oxford. Was Shotton and Briggs. Oh my goodness, they were assassins on the pitch. They were, anything went, anything went, and they were really two tough guys. Shotton was a Yorkshire guy, and Briggs had one of those little moustaches and the curly hair, yeah, and they were really tough. So I would say that they gave me most problems. Listen, games you enjoy playing against. Sometimes you enjoy playing against opponents, but those two were really tough for me.
David, what would you say?
Well, I think you think of the old partnerships, and there were plenty of them. Larry Lloyd and Kenny Burns at Nottingham Forest. But I wasn't like Graeme, or I also played down the wide areas and that. So I had a different sort of. John Craggs at Middlesbrough was a difficult. A difficult player to come up against, not probably because of his pace really, but because of his experience. He's a big, broad lad, and I know if I could perhaps sort of get the ball around him, then I wouldn't have a problem. But when I think back on it, he's probably up there with the toughest, and he thought he was hard as well, which is that they were always dangerous, those ones.
Anyone nowadays you think I wouldn't like to play against then?
Games change so much now, Jen. And some of the things that you could get away with in our day, you wouldn't get anywhere near it now. So tough ones. I would love to have played against John Terry.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have, because I think it would have been a real physical battle.
David, anyone now you'd like to avoid?
Not avoid so much. I mean, I'd like to have come and seen what Terry's like actually. Obviously, he has that much sort of good press. I'd like to see I'd like to have pit my wits against him.
Brilliant, thank you very much, guys. Okay, that's it for this week's Football Friday. Join us next week when we'll look back at Man United against Liverpool and, of course, Everton against QPR. See you next week.
Safe for the family, including the dog. Football Friday, brought to you by Elite Lawns.